Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Impact at Scale podcast with Zal Dastur. I'm here with Mairu Gupta, the CEO and founder of the Antkind Collective. Hi, Mairu. How you doing?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, Meru. Now, normally when I bring founders on, they are people that are running businesses in sustainability. But I think what is interesting with you is that you and me are trying to do the same thing, where we are trying to help companies talk about their product or reach a wider audience. So why don't you tell me a little bit about Antkind Collective and the work that you're doing to help sustainability companies?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Zal. What we're doing at Antkind, and I mean, the need for Antkind arose from when I studied climate change at Terra.2, and it was a climate for action course. And I realized that, there's a couple of things that are missing when climate companies are solving for really important problems and inventing really smart solutions. But what's lacking is a way to communicate this clearly and in simple language, because climate can be confusing, climate can be technical, to be able to build a narrative and how to scale companies. You have figured out what your product market fit is, then how do you go 1 to 10? And that's a different skill set that most founders seem to lack in the climate space. And we found that space and said, Anken can come in and help build digital marketing and B2B scaling solution for companies essentially. So that's how we help climate companies.
So very interesting. It's definitely something that I've noticed in the space as well, where people are very passionate in climate and they want to, they want to shout and they want to tell you all about what's going on with the world, but that doesn't always necessarily translate into sales. And sometimes it can be seen as being almost a little bit too preachy or too activist, which can put off particularly companies that are trying to uh, large companies. I find where they don't necessarily want to be involved with very activist work. So it's interesting to see that, and especially the kind of storytelling that you're doing. I know that you've got some interesting projects, but why don't we rewind a little bit? You said that you kind of got this idea from doing Terra Do, but why don't you talk me through a little bit about your process, because obviously having the idea and then starting a company and then growing a company are very different things. So kind of give me a little bit of the genesis of Antkind.
I mean, I've been always leaned into the impact space and trying to make a difference for since a long time, like from teaching English to underprivileged students in in high school, to start trying to study political science honors in college, to essentially become a policy maker at some point, which that didn't work out for whatever reasons, and organizing blood donation camps, lots of things, right? And so always wanted to work in the impact space and make a real difference, but life caught up and I had responsibilities, so had to do things which were correct and be able to get, like, money in the bank. And so had a long corporate career of 15 years, and finally, I think right now I found that I had reached a stage where I was able to take decisions basis what I really really wanted to do, and uh, that's what. Um, that's what prompted me to essentially start studying climate a little bit on the side to understand. And climate is not something we can see in our daily lives. It's no longer a theoretical concept. Climate change is something that people are feeling and grappling with in their daily lives. There's enough data points that we see that point towards that. So when I studied at Terra and I graduated, first I tried to look for a job in climate. And that can be difficult for a person with a media and entertainment history in my career, and so that did not work. And then I ended up being on the board of a couple of startups, trying to help them market and scale. And then I realized as I went deeper that these companies don't just need an advisor. They need a hand holding. They need a CMO. They need somebody who can, or a business development officer. They need people who are going to think about this day and night about how to communicate the good things that they're doing, and get out there and build trust amongst people for the companies that they run in such a great way, but they're not able to communicate that. And that's when the advisory position sort of changed into me forming a company and saying, hey, if I started something like that, would you come on board? And I had some, two or three people who I was generally working with in network, and who said, hey, you start Antkind, we're going to be there. We believe in what you're trying to do. And that is how I got the confidence to launch a company.
I mean, Antkind is a very different agency. Like the approach that you have in term and the work that you're doing is a bit different. So tell me a little bit about what makes you so unique from an agency point of view.
Because Antkind is a mix of an agency and an accelerator in a way. So while we are a digital marketing company in the sense that we do all the traditional things like brand identity, or content marketing, PR, influencers, thought leadership, we do those kind of things that typical agencies do, and most agencies are B2C focused also. But how Unkind is different is that we are doing what we're doing is we're thinking 0 to 1 for startups and 1 to 10. So we're focused on today. You just got funded on pre-seed or seed, and you need to get out there. You need to have a logo. You need to have a vision, mission. You need to have social media presence. You need to have should you be building newsletters and talking to people? Should the founder be more active on LinkedIn? So there is so much to grapple with for a founder all of a sudden to be visible out there, that it can become a little daunting. And so therefore the 0 to 1 service is very helpful in that way. And I think we are more focused on the companies and their stage versus saying we are an all encompassing digital marketing company. So I think that's one way of how we are different. The other would be business development. So a lot of climate companies are B2B, and so they need a lot of lead generation, follow through, working with the relevant stakeholders, and sort of building up to a sale, which has long cycles. So I have business development experience, 15 years of business dev essentially, and so therefore I think that I was able to bring process and a way of thinking in terms of business development and how to growth hack the company beyond your digital communication. There are multiple different ways in which you can do that. So I think that's how we're different.
And are you able to tell us about some of the really interesting projects that you've done with clients so far?
Um, so we are 5 months old. So you will see that a lot of projects are going to be launched very, very soon. In the next 2 months, we'll be launching 3, 4 of them. A lot of them are, cooking. But what I can tell you is, for example, I mean, this is one of the early believers, Altem, which is alternate materials. These are, ex-Tesla people who moved back to India and just raised, $3.5 million to launch Altem, which is alternate materials. So they take agricultural waste and they convert it into organic raw materials. Crop burning is a huge issue in North India and creates a lot of air pollution. Delhi is one of the most polluted, second most polluted, or the first most polluted city in the world. So crop burning is one of the major reasons why that happens. And so they're converting agricultural waste into organic raw materials. They wanted to launch this brand, and we are doing their full brand identity, and we'll be unveiling that soon. But one of the things, the approaches that we took was, can Altem, beyond just a raw materials provider, become synonymous to being known for sustainability as a raw material company? So can you make it the Intel for for products essentially? And how do you do that, right? So one of the things that we thought of doing is, every product that launches, you have a crafted with Altem unit on the product that essentially is stamped every time you buy. So when you're on the shelf, you're looking for a crafted with Altem unit, and you know that if this brand has the raw materials from Altem, then this is a product that's sustainable and is certified sustainable, right? So how do even with B2B businesses, how do you build brands that have longevity, that have meaning, and that can be built as brands and not just raw material companies essentially? So that's how that's Altem, for example. Um, should I give you one more example? Or
Please, please. Love to hear it.
so another brand's called Pyse, Pyse, and Pyse is a green assets investment for green assets platform, both B2B and B2C. So they essentially raise money for companies who want to turn their electricity green, their EV fleets green, whatever. And they raise money through both retail and institutional finance essentially to be able to finance these, and then they give fixed returns to the lenders of that capital, right? So that's a really, really interesting model. So when people ask, hey, so this has multiple applications from an Antkind perspective. One is when people ask, normal common citizens say, what can I do when it comes to climate change? Composting is hard. I don't have the time. There's so many different things that small changes that you can make in your life. But a simple way is investments. Everybody wants to invest. Everybody wants a fixed return in a safe asset. And Pyse, gives fixed returns on green investments to their consumers. So a B2C communication strategy is required here. Then can you get funds to include Pyse as an asset class, who then their consumers invest in, for example? So that's a B2B, a sort of an engagement where we reach out to funds and we get them to put Pyse in their asset classes so that, capital can flow from there. Um, and then, they had so much demand to deploy EVs in Dubai, they chose to manufacture and assemble bikes now, and starting a brand specifically for that region. So B2B focused EV motorcycle built for last minute delivery and made in the UAE. So they're looking to deploy 4,000 bikes in the next 9 months in MENA. So as Antkind, now we are responsible for actually designing that bike, and how that bike will look. How can we have advertising space in it so it can be monetized further? How does Pyse as a brand is that bike? The moment anyone looks at that bike, they know it's a green bike and they know it's done by Pyse, right? So like these are the different ways in which you sort of help our clients, stand out and build narratives.
And why is that so important for sustainability and climate companies to build a narrative, to have a good marketing strategy? Why is that so crucial?
Man, traditionally, the way the narrative for climate has been like fighting Frankenstein, right? Doomsday scenarios, mutiny. The traditional narrative has been very negative when it comes to climate change. The problem is that fear rarely makes people take positive action. You look at life insurance companies, you look at all these products that, when you're dead, you get the money essentially, but they are never communicated in a doomsday scenario. They always have positive reinforcement, right? While in the back, you know that that's true, but that's how the human brain works, right? So the kind of narratives we need in climate are, Hunger Games narratives, youth mutiny, or Iron Man, right? Like a techno savior narrative. So, for example, Alternate Materials as a brand is a techno savior in the sense that they built proprietary technology that helps convert agricultural waste right into raw materials. So from technology perspective, they are transforming the narrative, right? Or the Eat, Pray, Love narrative, which is a global awakening narrative that helps you with citizen action. So these are all storytelling devices in which brands can find homes on hey, this is me, this is my brand, this is my product, this is the narrative that makes sense to the consumer I am trying to reach out to. And then that's how you create movements. There's a purpose, there is a plot, there is people, and you put all of these together and find a narrative that's right for you and the consumer you're talking to, and that helps you make the impact that you're trying to make in the climate space.
So, a question linked to that is, what are you seeing in terms of a change in the consumer mindset in India? I know you were talking about a youth movement there, but are you seeing a shift in the consciousness towards more sustainability or towards more climate and planet friendly ideas?
So from a governmental perspective, yes, 100%. There is there's a big focus. India is going to cross its solar energy targets that it agreed to in the Paris Climate Agreement already. Before the deadline. I heard plane announcements that were happening while I was in, a flight from Delhi to Mumbai, where the Prime Minister was saying these are the three things you should be doing in your daily life to be more sustainable and climate change. There are lots of policies that are coming now, and some have already been launched that are encouraging startups to take they're taking a very aggressive stance in helping startups fund grow fast, in the climate space. So governmental, yes. As far as consumers are concerned, I mean, we have data that says that consumers consider like more than 60% of consumers consider sustainability important when choosing a brand now, especially Gen Z consumers. We're talking about people who are 26 and below in age. Yeah, we're saying three-fourths of teenagers say they want to buy more sustainable products. So we know that there is intention already, and there is strong intention. There is obviously, people say that sustainability is expensive. If you're a conscious brand, it's definitely going to be more expensive than a regular brand. But that is now changing. Sustainability is actually cheaper and more competitive priced than regular brands, and I think that's where the opportunity lies. And so when consumers, now it's a matter of communicating that this product is as good as a regular product, but is also cheaper or the same price, right? And I think we are on the cusp where this becomes a movement which becomes a mass movement. But we have a lot of tier one India, metro India, who is extremely conscious about sustainability already and is making purchase decisions based on that.
And that's, I know that the Prime Minister of India has really put a big push, for example, on solar. And it makes sense for a country that imports a lot of its energy to be able to say, hey, why don't we start upskilling into a renewable area? And I mean, you don't have to tell me about Delhi. I was there a couple of weeks ago. I think I'm still suffering from the effects of 10 days in Delhi because, I've been coughing nonstop since. And it can only be attributed to the pollution that you see very visibly everywhere, and that any other part of the world, that's considered a hazardous level of pollution to deal with. People in Delhi are living with that on a daily basis. So there's certainly an impetus to do this. Um, what? Tell me what the most surprising thing that you've encountered along your journey so far. What is this something that's really made you sort of sit back and take notice?
You mean uh, as far as climate change is concerned in India?
Climate change in India, or even dealing with the clients that you have, has anything really like where you thought something, for example, might be a small trend has actually jumped at a scale and at a rate larger than you expected?
Well, I would say maybe two things. I think fashion is definitely focused on sustainability, especially when it comes to India, because the textiles that we make, khadi is what they call it. I don't know what to call it in English, but khadi is essentially 100% sustainable material. So there is a big push in the fashion space to khadi and to more sustainable textiles. And one of the brands that's doing and we'll be launching some really interesting stuff very soon is Akaro, Akaaro, and they are India's one of India's top fashion brands. And their designer is 100% gets his textiles done with, for example, handicraft. Folks in villages and sort of gets them and makes his own textiles, 100% sustainable brand. And I think that's more and more fashion brands are coming up. I can name a lot, but that's I think is one. And the second interesting piece is I think space. So how can space exploration be connected to a more sustainable Earth? for example. I think that's on the cusp also. I mean, we have tremendous amounts of investments going into space, and I've not heard much in the sustainability conversations about space. And there will be a lot of people who would say that this is obviously, I mean, the amount of carbon that a rocket when it flies releases, right? But I think sustainability is a spectrum where you to look at when you invest something and when you or what is the return that's possible, right? And the scale of which it is. So, for example, NASA just gave a contract to Blue Origin to mine moon rock, and they've already cracked the technology on how to convert moon rock into infinite amounts of energy, which will then beam it back to Earth. uh, so those are the kind of things that are already happening. And one of our clients actually is the Space Exploration and Research Agency in the US, that are on the forefront of this also. So they are sending five common citizens to space for free into very very soon. And India is one of the markets where they are sending someone for free, and we are sort of Antkind is handling the India activation for them. So one of the countries that they're sending is from sending someone from to space is SIDS, which is the small island developing states, which are the first essentially islands to get affected by climate change and when the seawater levels rise, and so therefore, anyway, so I think that space exploration and the awareness around that and how it can help, because the population is not decreasing on Earth, right? So like where so resources are limited. So in the short to near term, I don't think there is just one narrative on climate. There have to be multiple things, multiple people thinking about different solutions, and I think space is another interesting one that I was really really surprised by when I heard what's going on in that space to come back.
I mean, space is interesting. I read an article the other day which was questioning, you've got Elon Musk, Richard Branson, although I don't know if Richard Branson's company still exists anymore, but Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos all spending billions of dollars to get to space. And the whole premise of the article was these people are spending all of this money. Why don't they invest it on Earth? And why aren't they, using that to literally save the planet? Because, there is so much that needs to go in. And I think to your point about the movement, there needs to be a change in how we do everything. Transport, eating, building, like whatever you want to do on a daily basis, we're probably doing it to the detriment of the environment in every aspect. And
That's right.
so there needs to be a rethinking. And I guess, I would liken it similar to what happened during the Industrial Revolution, where we moved from this sort of artisanal way of making and creating everything to a mass production style of making everything. Now we've really perfected that. I mean, humans are incredible at, if there is a market demand for pushing the price of something down to the lowest level and making as many of it as possible. Now we need to find out how we can do this sustainably. How can we do this meaningfully? How can we do this even in like a proper circular economy, so there's no genuine waste, or whatever waste is created is then put into a resource for something else. And I think India, I've always been amazed at their ability to work through difficult solutions. I mean, Jugaad is literally the national anthem. How would you describe Jugaad to those that may not know what this word means?
I think jugaad is the ability to get shit done. And what it could, I mean, the closest English word to that would be makeshift, right? So because of the immense population and the lack of the scarce and resources being scarce in India, to get things done can be difficult sometimes. And so sometimes you tweak the rules here a little bit, and then you request somebody to please adjust a little bit, and essentially you don't have to play always by the rule book and be extremely linear in your thinking. And Jugaad is essentially being able to, I think
And
out of the box.
and I think that's how we have to change our thinking, right? I think that the thinking moving forward has to be transformed to understand, for us to understand, okay, well, this is how we did it in the past. This is how we need to do it in the future. And that shift, while right now it seems so huge, it seems like a massive mountain to climb. I think in the coming decades, I hope that we will be surprised at how quickly things have changed.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are short-term solutions and there are long-term ones, but the fact that that this narrative is not taking speed, is so heartening to see. I'm new to climate, right? But I know people now I've worked with who were working in regenerative finance like 15, 13 years ago, I guess, when we didn't even know it was a thing, right? So many OGs I meet and I have so much deep respect for them, and all these people have been working for so long because they believe that this is a thing that needs to be solved. And now that we're so close to our deadlines on keeping temperature levels low, and resources getting scarcer, and extreme events getting more higher frequency, and all of those things. So I'm maybe a little bit late, but I'm so happy and so excited to see that there is a narrative that's really building up.
Well, this actually brings me back to something that you said earlier in our discussion about how when you finished Terra-Do, you were looking for an opportunity and you struggled as someone with sort of a media and entertainment background to find something in the space, which actually is a bit disheartening to me because I would think that a lot of companies out there or a lot of businesses that are in sustainability need marketing people, they need salespeople, they need these kind of people to take that product out to market and to make sure that we use or understand or even know what it is. So
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, I'm a bit disappointed to hear that it was such a change, but hey, what came out of this was this organization. um Let me ask you, what if you could tell sustainability and climate companies something to do with marketing, what is those sort of one or two things that you would love that every company understood about this?
um, Understand the power of brand and what that means. It means building trust. It means getting, it means that having space in somebody's mind for your company who associates it with X emotion or X feeling or X meaning. And that is what is going to result in you becoming a company that people want to work with more, or your products being able to sell more. There is, whether you're B2B or B2C, it does not matter. I mean, the power of a brand helps you do better deals, raise better money, get more consumers, get remembered for longer. So understand the power of building a brand and being able to communicate it. And second is, um, focus on business development a little bit, because you built a great product, but it's not going to sell itself. So whether it means growth hacking strategies, whether it means doing more social media, whether it means hiring somebody in your company to do business development full time, an experienced person, and if you have to pay them more than what you're getting paid, it's fine, because that's how non-climate companies pay. And when climate companies are hiring, they have to realize that they are poaching the best talent from the best companies in the world, and it's going to cost them a little bit. But it's about investing in your business at the end of the day.
What advice would you have, or like maybe some practical tips for a company to build a brand? What are the things they should keep in mind when they're thinking about this? Because I think everybody wants to be the next Apple or the next Nike, but few achieve that goal. What are some of the things that they can do from your experience to help do this?
Start with your purpose. I think a lot of people struggle with that. Your purpose can't be, oh, I'm helping solve for climate change. Your purpose has to be more specific in terms of what you're doing, why you're doing it, and what does it solve for, who does it solve for. Identify who you're talking to. It's very important to know who you're talking to, because that's where the whole of your company is to focus and be focused on, including your brand. And then it comes to getting experts on board, where who are going to help you focus what you have figured out into a positioning statement, into understanding what your competition is saying, how you can differentiate yourself, what is the voice that you should be using, the narratives that I talked about earlier, Frankenstein was Eat, Pray, Love, or whatever. What is the narrative of your brand that will, because most stories have similar structures, right? Whether it's like two people fell in love, problem happened, fight happened, they are now away. Now there's a common challenge, they have to go and fight, and then they're going to overcome that essentially and be united again, right? So that's one narrative. Similarly, you have five or six big narratives that 80% of your movies are made of, for example. So the power of storytelling essentially comes down to those narratives, and you have to understand what your brand is, and therefore what narrative is that it should be talking about, and those are, get experts on board who can build that for you, and that's how you essentially build a brand, and then you stick to that narrative, you stick to that tone of voice, you stick to how you talk over a period of time, and then people start associating their you with that emotion or that style, or there's so many iconic brands in the world, like think of any top three and you will know exactly why, how this makes sense.
And the narratives that you develop, those should be developed from a very early stage. You can't be thinking about brand as something that, oh, I'll do it later when I have, a budget to hire a branding agency, or I'll do this. It's really got to be, maybe just post ideation when you're setting up the company. What is the narrative that we want to project every time we talk about the business or every time we engage with a customer?
That's right. And if you don't have a lot of money, that's okay. Start with like a smaller version of that exercise. The larger version of that exercise literally goes into like, 100 pages or 50 pages of a PDF talking about every aspect of how to do things. But you can simply start small and say, this is my vision, my mission, my purpose. I need a narrative defined and a tone of voice defined for now, and then we'll work on phase two maybe in 3 months' time. You know what I mean? And 6 months' time. And you can break that down, but absolutely you're bang on, Zal, that you need to have that thinking from day one, because you're talking to people from day one about your brand. Right? So
I think
it's
what I
like having a
worry about is what I've seen with a lot of entrepreneurs is that they think that that is airy fairy, like, oh yeah, my brand will get built when my business is built and I'm too busy building the business. But I guess they have to understand that really it's one in the same. And everything from how you look, your packaging, how you present yourself, how you communicate, all of it matters ultimately in the mind of the consumer, especially if you're doing B2C. I think
yeah,
B2B has a different strategy when it comes to
yeah,
brand and the things that companies want to be associated with when they're a B2B company. But if you're a B2C company, there's really a way that you present your narrative in a meaningful way so that you can connect with that consumer and resonate in their mind. And the story is so key. I mean, that's, I go on about that endlessly, about the importance of a story and the importance of knowing your story, because that's what's going to really land and stick with the mind of consumers and even investors.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't blame the founders for not thinking about it straight away, because they're like, wait, I need to have a product first, right? Before before I go. So they're always figuring out what the supply chain is, what the product is, who's going to buy, who's my first customer, things like that. And so they don't have the time for this essentially, and which is again come back to the gap that we're trying to fill there, right? But I think B2C or B2B, two things are common. Brand, you still need a brand. Business development, you still need business development. I think what's different is the way and scale at which you use consumer tools like Instagram, for example. So a B2C brand would focus more on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and to build content and to get into popular culture and influencers and things like that, creators. A B2B brand would focus more on um, LinkedIn, and let's say the founder's LinkedIn specifically, not even the company page. I mean, more and more people want to hear authentic stories of and so leadership branding is, for example, a huge thing for a B2B company. For a B2B company, is email marketing big? Is lead generation huge? Is going to vertical communities that are focused on the business that they're in, where a lot of their target audience is sitting? Going there and engaging and having a presence there is important. So there are multiple things that are relevant depending on your business, but you definitely need to start thinking about it from day one.
Amazing, Mira. Mira, this chat has been great. Thanks so much. I think you've given a lot of helpful advice to brands out there, and yeah, thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks for having me, Zal. Such a pleasure, and all the best for the great work that you're doing.